My name is Miriam. I am 24 years old, and I want to tell you something that I have never been able to fully explain out loud. Not because I do not want to, but because every time I try to say it, the words feel too small for what I went through. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try because maybe someone out there feels the same way I used to feel. Maybe someone is lying down right now, in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering why they feel so empty when everything in their life looks fine from the outside. Maybe that person is you. And if it is, I want you to stay with me, because what I am about to tell you changed everything for me. Let me start from the beginning. I grew up in a home where everything had a rule. Everything. What time to wake up, how to speak, how to sit, what to wear, what to think. My father was not a bad man. I want to be very clear about that. He was a man who believed very deeply. He believed that the way our family lived was the right way. And in our community, people respected him. When he walked into a room, people straightened up. When he spoke, people listened. He was that kind of man. My mother was different. She was soft, quiet. She moved around the house like she did not want to take up too much space. She cooked. She cleaned. She took care of us. She prayed when my father said it was time to pray. She never disagreed with anything. Not once. At least, not in front of us. I watched her my whole life, and I learned from her. Not because anyone told me to copy her, but because I could see what happened when you made things difficult, when you questioned something, when you pushed back. The house would go cold. My father would not shout all the time. Sometimes silence was worse than shouting, that kind of silence that fills the whole house and sits in your chest. So I learned very early. You just go along. You say yes. You smile. You obey. And then the house stays warm. That was the rule. And for many years I followed it very well. I was a good student in religious school. I could recite things that grown women could not recite. My teachers would praise me. My father would hear about it and come home looking proud. And that pride on his face was one of the best feelings I knew as a child. I would do anything to see that look on his face. Anything. So I worked hard. I learned everything I was told to learn. I prayed everything I was told to pray. I covered everything I was told to cover. I smiled at the people I was told to smile at. I stayed away from the people I was told to stay away from. My whole life was a list of instructions. And the thing is, I did not hate it. Not then. Because when you grow up inside something, you do not see the walls. You just think that is what the world looks like. But there were moments. There were small moments that I could not explain, even to myself. Times when I would finish praying and stand up and feel nothing. Not peace. Not relief. Not connection. Just nothing. Like I had been talking into an empty room. And then I would feel guilty for feeling that. Because who was I to feel nothing? I was doing everything right. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was not sincere enough. Maybe I needed to try harder. So I tried harder. I added more prayers. I read more. I fasted more than was required. I pushed myself to be more serious, more dedicated, more obedient. And still, that empty feeling would come back, especially at night. There is something about nighttime that makes it very hard to lie to yourself. In the daytime, there is noise. There are things to do, people to talk to. You can keep yourself busy enough that the feeling does not catch you. But at night, when everyone is asleep and the house is quiet, the feeling would come and sit right next to me. And I could not get away from it. I would lie there and think, what is wrong with me? I was not sad in a way I could point to. It was not like a headache or a pain in my stomach. It was more like a hunger, but not for food. A hunger for something I could not name. Something I did not even know existed. I used to press my hand against my chest at night and think, why does this feel so hollow? I had no answer for that. Then I got married. His name was Ibrahim. He was chosen by my father, which meant he was everything my father approved of. He prayed. He worked. He was serious. He had a good job and a good reputation. My father shook his hand and looked satisfied. My mother cried a little when I left the house, but she smiled while she was crying, like she was happy and sad at the same time. I moved into Ibrahim's house, and I started again. A new set of rules. A new routine. Wake up, pray, Surf, be quiet when he is tired. Smile when he is home. Do not bring problems to him unless it is serious. Handle the rest yourself. I did all of that. I'm not saying Ibrahim was cruel. He was not. He was a man who had also been raised with instructions. He followed his instructions. I followed mine. We lived together very properly. But something was still wrong. The emptiness did not go away when I got married. It came with me, like luggage I did not know I was carrying. There were nights I would sit by the window after Ibrahim had fallen asleep, and I would look out at the street, and I would feel so alone. Not because there was no one around me, but because even with people around me, something inside me still felt completely by itself. I remember one specific night. Ibrahim was away for work. I was alone in the house. The whole place was very quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy. I made tea and sat at the table and just looked at my hands. And I said out loud to no one in the room, "Why do I still feel like this?" The silence did not answer me. That question stayed with me for a long time. Then something happened that my family called a blessing. My father came to visit one afternoon with a very serious look on his face. He sat down and said that I had been chosen to go to Mecca for Hajj. It was something our family had been saving and planning for a long time, and I was going to be part of it. The room filled with joy. My mother held her chest like she might start crying. Ibrahim shook my father's hand very seriously. Everyone was so happy, and I was happy too. But underneath the happiness, there was something else. Something that was almost desperate, because the way I felt in that moment was not just excitement about a religious journey. It was hope. A deep, aching kind of hope. Like maybe this was the answer to all those nights by the window. Maybe this was the thing that would finally fix whatever was broken inside me. I thought, if God is anywhere, He must be there. And if I can just get close enough, maybe I will finally feel something real. I prepared with everything I had. I read everything. I followed every instruction. I planned every step. I was not going to make any mistakes. I was not going to miss any prayer or any ritual. I was going to do this so perfectly that surely, something would shift inside me. The trip was long. By the time we arrived, my body was already tired, but I did not let myself rest. I went straight into the prayers, the rituals, the movements. I did everything exactly the way I had been taught, and the place was something. I will not pretend it was not. Millions of people, everyone focused, everyone praying. There was something very powerful about standing in the middle of all of that, something that could move you just from the feeling of the crowd alone. I cried the first day, just from the sight of everything, just from being there. And I thought, this is it. This is the moment things change. But the days kept going. I kept praying. I kept moving through the rituals. I kept doing everything right. And I kept waiting for the emptiness to go. It did not go. By the 5th day, I was exhausted. My body hurt. My feet hurt. I had not slept properly in days. And I was starting to feel something that scared me very much. I was starting to feel worse. Not better, worse. Because now I had no more excuses. I had done everything a person can do. I had traveled across the world. I had stood in the most holy place I had ever been. I had prayed more in those 5 days than I had prayed in months. I had cried. I had begged. I had pushed myself until my body had nothing left. And still, that feeling, that hollow, quiet, unbearable feeling, was still there. One evening, I went back to my room. I sat on the edge of the bed. I was too tired to even think properly. My roommate had gone back out for another prayer. I was alone. And something in me just gave up. Not in a dramatic way. Not like I was falling apart. More like when you have been holding something very heavy for a very long time, and your arms finally just stop working. I could not pray the way I had been praying. I did not have the words. I did not have the energy for long sentences or proper form or any of the things I had been carefully doing. So I just said one thing, very quietly. I said, "God, if you are real, I need you." That was everything. That was all I had left. I did not say it beautifully. I did not even know if it was the right way to speak. I just said it because it was the only true thing left inside me in that moment. Then I lay down. And I slept. What happened next is the part of the story that I still do not have the right words for. I have told it a few times now, and every time I try to tell it, I feel like I am failing to explain it, because human words are not enough for what happened. I had a dream. But when I say dream, I need you to understand that I know the difference between a normal dream and this. I have had normal dreams my whole life. Dreams where everything is blurry and strange and you wake up and it is already fading. Dreams where the people in them look wrong or the places are mixed up. Normal dreams. This was not that. This was clear. Everything was clear. The way real life is clear when you are awake. The air, the light, the ground, everything had weight and detail. And there was a man standing in front of me. I did not recognize him, but I was not afraid when I saw him. At least, not for more than a second. There was a brief moment where my body wanted to be afraid, the way you feel when something unexpected happens. But then that went away very fast, because of his face. His face was calm in a way that I had never seen on any person I had ever met. Not the calm of someone who is just relaxed. A deeper calm. A calm that felt like it came from somewhere inside him that nothing could ever disturb. And his eyes. I keep coming back to his eyes every time I try to tell the story, because his eyes were looking at me in a way that I cannot explain. Not judging me. Not checking me. Not like the eyes of people who look at you to see if you are following the rules. His eyes were looking at me like he already knew everything about me and was not bothered by any of it. Like I was known, completely known, and still welcome. I do not know how else to say it. He did not speak right away. He just looked at me. And in that looking I felt something. Pwumph, de-pwumph, coming from nowhere, going everywhere. And then he spoke. His voice was quiet, not loud. Not powerful in the way that feels like it is trying to be powerful. Just clear, and close, like he was speaking only to me. He said, "I see your heart." I could not say anything. My mouth did not work in this dream. But I felt those words go inside me like something being placed very carefully in an empty space. I see your heart. He had seen it, of it, every night by the window. Every prayer that felt like it went nowhere. Every time I pushed and tried and came up empty. All those years of following rules and feeling hollow anyway. He had seen all of that. And he was not disappointed. He was not angry. He was just seeing it. Then he said, "You are looking for truth. I am the truth." And something in me broke. Not broke in a bad way. Broke the way ice breaks when the water underneath finally starts moving. Something that had been frozen and stuck for a very long time. I started crying in the dream. Deep crying. The kind that comes from somewhere very far down inside you. Then he said, "I love you. I have always been with you." And then I woke up. I sat up fast. My heart was going so fast. My face was completely wet. I reached up and touched my cheeks and they were actually wet with real tears. Not dream tears. Real ones. I looked around the room. Everything was normal. The walls were the same. The light was the same. My roommate was still out. The room was quiet. But I was not the same. I pressed both hands against my chest. And I held very still. Listening for that feeling I had carried for years. The emptiness was gone. Just gone. Like it had never been there. In its place was something that I had no word for. It was quiet. It was warm. It was steady. It did not feel like excitement. It did not feel like happiness that might go away when something goes wrong. It felt more like when you step inside after being out in the cold for a very long time. That specific feeling of warmth that goes all the way into your bones. I sat there for a long time and just breathed. The next morning I tried to be logical about it. I told myself it was just a dream. My body had been pushed too hard. I was tired and emotional and my mind had created something. That was the explanation. That had to be the explanation. But his voice would not leave my head. "I am the truth." I kept hearing it, while I was walking, while I was eating, while I was in the middle of the next prayer. His voice was there. And every time I heard it, the warmth came back. I did not know what to do with any of it. I came home from Mecca and my family was so proud of me. Ibrahim welcomed me with more warmth than usual. People in our community came to greet me. Everyone wanted to hear about the journey. I told them the things they wanted to hear, about the crowds and the prayers and the experience. I did not tell anyone about the dream, because I did not know what it meant yet, and because I knew that talking about it before I understood it would cause problems I was not ready for. But I kept thinking about the dream. Every single day. You are looking for truth. I am the truth. Who is he? I went through everything I knew and I could not place that face. He was not a face I had seen in any book or picture. He was not someone I recognized. But the words he used, the way he spoke, something about it felt like I had heard it before, somewhere very deep inside me that I could not reach. Months passed. The feeling of peace stayed with me, quiet and steady in the background. But the question about who the man was never left. Then one day, through a situation I will not go into much detail about, I got a Bible. I knew what it was. I knew what my family would say if they saw it, so I kept it hidden. Very carefully hidden. I waited until the house was quiet at night, and then I would bring it out and read by the smallest light I could manage. I started from the beginning, reading slowly, sometimes not understanding, going back and reading again, and then I came to the part about Jesus. I do not know how to explain what happened when I started reading about him. It was physical. My heart started to beat differently. A strange recognition, like when you hear a song you have not heard since you were very small, and something in your body remembers it before your mind does. I kept reading, night after night, hidden in the dark, reading. And then one night I came to a line, Jesus speaking, and he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I stopped. I read it again. I am the truth. My hands started to shake. I am not exaggerating. They were actually shaking. I put the book down and pressed my hands flat on the bed and just tried to breathe, because those were the words. Those were the exact words the man in my dream had spoken. You are looking for truth. I am the truth. I whispered into the dark room, Jesus, was that you? And the warmth came. The same warmth. Strong and quiet and completely certain. I sat there for a long time, just holding that, just letting it be real. From that night, something was decided in me. I did not have all the answers. I did not understand everything. I had so many questions and I knew I would have many more. But one thing I knew, all the way down in the deepest part of me, was that the man in the dream was Jesus, and that what he said was true. I started praying to him, very simply. I did not know all the right words. I just spoke to him the way I had spoken that night in Mecca, when I had run out of everything else. I would say, Jesus, I do not know everything, but I believe you. And every time I said it, the peace would come. Every time, without fail. I want to be honest with you about what the next part of the story felt like, because I do not want to make it sound easier than it was, or cleaner than it was. Living with a truth that you cannot share is a very specific kind of pain, because the people around you love you and you love them, and there is this enormous thing growing inside you that they do not know about, and you know that the day they find out, everything changes. I kept it for as long as I could, but Ibrahim noticed first. He is a careful man. He pays attention to details, and he started to see that something was different in me. I was calmer. I was lighter. But it was not the kind of calm that comes from obedience. It was a different kind. And I think somewhere in him, without knowing exactly what it was, he felt that something had changed. He asked me about it one evening, not harshly, just quietly. He said, "You seem different lately." I said, "I feel different." He asked, "Different how?" I did not know how to answer that. A few weeks later, he found the Bible. I had hidden it well, I thought. But he was looking for something in the room, and he found it. He stood in the doorway holding it. His face was a kind of still that was worse than anger. I could see him trying to understand what he was looking at. He said very slowly, "What is this?" I had thought about this moment many times. I had rehearsed different things to say. But when the moment actually came, none of the rehearsed things were useful. I just stood there. He said it again, louder. "What is this, Miriam?" I said, "It is the Bible." He looked at me like I had said something in a language he did not speak. He put the book down on the table between us like it was something that could burn him. He said, "Why do you have it?" I did not have a good lie. I have never been a good liar. And I had also reached a point where I did not want to lie anymore, even if the truth was dangerous. I said, because I have been reading it. The silence in that room was the kind that has weight. He said, very quietly, "Have you lost your mind?" And then he picked up his phone and called my father. Within the hour, my father was at the door. My 2 older brothers came with him. My mother came too, but she stood behind everyone else, in the way she always stood. My father walked in and looked at me, and I could see that he had already heard enough on the phone to be furious. His face was controlled, but his hands were not. He was gripping the back of the chair very tightly. He said, "Tell me what I heard is not true." I looked at him. My father, the man I had spent my whole life trying to make proud, the man whose face I had watched every day to know if I was safe or not. I looked at him and I felt so much love for him and so much fear of him all at the same time. And I also felt the peace. Still there, under all of it, steady. I said, "What did you hear?" He said, "That you have been reading the Christian book, that you have turned away." I said quietly, "I have not turned away from God." He said, "You have turned away from us." One of my brothers said something sharp that I will not repeat here. Ibrahim stood by the window with his arms crossed and said nothing. My father came closer and he said, "Miriam, you will stop this. Right now. You will end this today. You will burn that book and we will never speak of this again. Do you understand me?" I looked at my mother. She was crying without making any sound. Just tears coming down her face and her eyes looking at me like she was begging me. Like she was saying, "Please, just say yes. Just say yes and we can all go back." And I wanted to. I want to be honest about that. Part of me wanted so much to just say yes. To make everything go back to normal. To see my father relax and my mother stop crying and Ibrahim unclose his arms. I wanted that. But there was something else I wanted more. Or maybe it was not even wanting. Maybe it was just knowing. Knowing that I could not go back. Not because I did not want my family, but because I had found something real. And you cannot unfind something real. It does not work that way. I said, "I cannot deny Jesus." Everything stopped. My father's face changed. A change I had never seen before. He said, "What did you say?" I said it again. My voice was shaking but my chest was steady. "I cannot deny Jesus." The room went completely quiet. Then my father said the words. He said them slowly. He said, "If you continue this, you are no longer my daughter." I felt those words in my body like something physical. Ibrahim said, "If you follow this path, you are not my wife." My mother made a sound, just a small sound, and then she went quiet again. I was standing in the middle of all of them, the people I had belonged to my entire life, the only world I had ever known. I looked at each of them, and then I said it. I said, "I choose Jesus." That was the end of that life. Ibrahim sent me away 3 days later with a small bag of my things. My father did not call. My mother did not call. My brothers did not call. The community women who used to greet me stopped greeting me. It was like I had disappeared to them, like I had already died. Those weeks were the hardest weeks of my life. I want to be very clear about that because I do not want this story to sound like it was easy. It was not easy. There were days I could not stop crying, not because I doubted what I had chosen, but because grief and peace can live in you at the same time. I missed my mother's voice every single day. I missed the smell of my father's house. I missed things I did not even know I was going to miss until they were gone. There were people who said terrible things to me. People who told me I was cursed. People who said I had brought shame. People who looked at me like I was something broken or dangerous. There were moments, late at night in the small room I found to stay in, when the loneliness was so heavy I could barely breathe. But even in those moments, the peace was still there. Not the peace that means nothing is wrong. Not the peace that means you feel happy. The peace that means something is holding you even when everything around you is falling. That kind of peace. I would pray in that small room in the dark and I would say, "Jesus, I have no one, but I have you." And every time I said that, something in my chest would settle. Not all the way, but enough. Enough to get up the next morning. Enough to keep going. I have been asked many times since then if I regret my decision. People expect the answer to be complicated. They expect me to say something about weighing the cost, about calculating what I lost against what I gained. But the truth is simpler than that. I do not regret it. Not because losing my family did not hurt. It hurt more than I can say. Not because the loneliness was not real. It was very real. But because what I found is more real than anything I have ever touched. That night in Mecca, when I had nothing left, when I had tried everything and still come up empty, I said one honest thing. I said, God, if you are real, I need you. And he answered me, not with a big show, not with something impressive, with a man in a dream who looked at me and said, I see your heart. That was enough. That changed everything. I think about the years I spent feeling hollow. All those prayers that felt like they went nowhere. All those nights pressing my hand to my chest and not understanding what was wrong with me. And I think now that maybe nothing was wrong with me. Maybe I was just hungry. And I had been given everything except the one thing that could actually feed that hunger. When I finally found it, I knew. You always know when you finally find the real thing. You stop wondering if you are imagining it. You just know. I am 24 years old. I have lost my husband and my family and the community I grew up in. My life looks very different from what I was taught it should look like. But for the first time in my life, I do not feel empty. I feel known. I feel held. I feel like someone sees my heart and is not bothered by what they see. And I have never had that before. So no, I do not regret it. I would choose it again. Every time, even knowing what it would cost. I would walk back through all of it and choose the same thing at the end. Because peace, real peace, is worth everything. And now I know where it comes from. It comes from the man who stood in front of me in a dream in Mecca and said, I see your heart. The man whose voice I heard and whose words I later found written in a book. The man I prayed to in a small room with nothing around me and who was always there, every single time, without fail. His name is Jesus.